Welcome to the Brian and Mike podcast. Maybe that name will stick. We'll find out.
Baby.
You haven't drank all year.
No, I'm not.
Year to date. I've been on like a 2-3 year journey of like
2-3 year journey. Are you an alcoholic?
It feels like that's been very different. Like my friends have started not to drink. I don't think I ever could have done it without you. I think we had that time in Chicago where I'm pretty sure you started working out more because of me and I started drinking a lot less because of you. Like we both saw each other because we lived with each other for the first time.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like you see like how to do that habit. It's one of those things like I stopped having like a glass of whiskey every night, which is a thing I did for like 4 or 5 years because I come from a family of having a glass of alcohol every single night. And that's okay. But then I started reading about sleep, how it affects your sleep. And I also realized how to do it. But I'm going to pause. I just jumped on this topic without thinking too much about it. Besides, I've just been very active in my life the past 2 months maybe. I'm going to jump to you, let you tell your story.
Alcohol journey. I'd have to like start back to high school. So not even for the purposes of not getting indicted 10 years later. I didn't drink in high school. It was a pretty commonplace thing during my high school days at my high school. It wasn't even like a cool kids kind of thing to do. Like people just had access to alcohol somehow. So it wasn't that like I didn't have a choice. It was just more like I've never been like a substance person. And then college, like super accessible. Like Washington Lee, like I would say one of the lowest barriers to entry to alcohol college in America. Like you could be I'll just be honest, like back in those days for things that matter, like you could be a nobody and walk into any party and get alcohol, which I like, that's just not a thing anywhere because cost efficiency. So started during college. I think
we recently made a Wall Street Journal ranking, which you shared a LinkedIn and found organically.
I found very organically, and people really liked the fact that I shared it and I found it.
It's a top 10. What was the
top 10 party school in America? Which people have been disputed because you don't see all the like no-brainers up there. That I have mixed feelings. I don't know how we're number 8, but anyways, we party a lot.
We're establishing authenticity.
Authenticity, not unmindful of the alcoholic future. And I started drinking.
I didn't get that joke at first. Not unmindful of the.
That's our school slogan.
Not unmindful of the future. Not great school for. We love it to death.
But anyways, started in college. I think So my family, I wouldn't say it's a family of drinkers, but like certain people in my family like alcohol. So I think for me, like partying was fun. I like people, but it wasn't like I drink whiskey to go to bed kind of thing. And then if anything, ironically, the thing that Mike mentioned, after I started banking, I started drinking relatively often because we had like happy hours and stuff. And I would have to go out to like de-stress. And then once I started living with Mike, plus COVID hit, I like started hanging out with this group of people, not like a bad influence or anything, but they drank a lot. So I think I started drinking a lot with them. And then when I first came to New York, I drank a lot. That's probably the most I've drank in my life, actually. There was a period where I drank like 16 days in a row. And I was just going out every night. And like tolerance went up or whatever. And then nothing, there was no like, actually there was. Last year before I went on a church mission thing, like a church trip to the Dominican Republic, one of the guys who knew like I was like partying a lot on Easter was like, oh, like, yo, like Jesus is reborn. Like you should be reborn. I was like, okay. And he was half joking. He was like, I bet you can't not drink until July 9th. That's when we were going to DR. And this was April 8th.
Right.
And I was like, I could easily do that. And then I started doing that. So theoretically, yes, I probably drank a little bit at the end of that year, but I think since April last year, I probably drank like maybe 3 or 4 times.
That's when you started doing it. And I remember like, I have realized you need an excuse. You need a line.
Oh,
your early line was like, I'm going to show up to Sunday school with kids.
Yeah, that was.
I don't be hungover when I'm preaching to 10-year-olds about God and Christianity. And we're like, that is very hypocritical.
I agree.
Is it in the Bible? Like, what's the biblical?
There's like obviously varying interpretations, but I think the thing that I believe in and like the normal Christian believes in it, there's a specific verse that says like your body is a temple, so keep it like holy. It never says don't drink, like Jesus drank. It's more about like don't lose control so that it leads to sin. That's the only like genuinely not even like a progressive loophole view just to drink, but that's kind of the like you could drink, but if that drink leads you or others to sin. That is bad. That doesn't make you go to hell, but that's a bad thing.
Which are the laws of the U.S. really set up? You can drink, you can get drunk, but you can't drive, you can't do other stuff.
That's how I feel about it.
Going back to what I was like, we go in the why of drinking less, the why of drinking, and I've been listening to Andrew Huberman. He's a whole alcohol podcast. I think I have like 20 minutes left on it. It's one of those things where like I knew I wanted to stop and slow down. I've slowly slowed down. But you need some good lines. And my line recently, which I'd created for myself like 3 weeks ago, and I finally used in my work trip. And I had said, like, when I said it, like, one of my directors like repeated it, and it was like, it takes more than it gives. Like, for me in my life, like, alcohol, clearly it's a lot of fun. You feel good. You go out.
You feel great.
But it takes away the next 2 days.
It does.
And for me,
as you get older,
it's not, as you know, it takes more and more and more. And it probably, I don't think the give is ever less.
No,
That's the fact that you've done it.
I agree.
And I enjoyed going out. I enjoyed partying and clubbing and all that stuff. A lot of fun. But it was not worth what it took to take, most of the time, not worth what it takes.
Speaking on excuse, so I had this like Korean workplace environment this week.
Okay.
I was doing like business with the Koreans, and they have a different kind of drinking. I'm talking like literally Koreans from like they came from Korea yesterday kind of thing. And we went to a dinner last night in K-Town, literally down the street. And they were offering drinks, not aggressively. They're like, some Koreans are known for enforcing it on you, but it wasn't like that. They understood that I was an American, and I was like, oh, like I don't drink, and they're like, whoa, like I think one they thought I looked like I drank a lot, which like sure, and then I was like, they're like, why? And I was like, oh, like I gave up drinking and cussing this year because I did a lot of it last year, and they started laughing. But then the one thing that I don't, so this guy, I didn't really like him throughout the week, and I think there was some beef, whatever. He was like, oh, like
is this one of the important people in your career?
Yeah, it's pretty important. He was pretty important. But like, screw him. He was like, oh, like, can you sit 2 seats over since you don't drink? And then he invited people that drank to like drink together.
Okay.
Which I understand.
Yeah.
But like, here's my so throughout this week I kept putting it into an American perspective. You were telling me at a work, like a happy hour.
Yeah.
You're like I don't drink, and then your manager's like, oh, can you sit 2 seats next to you? And then he like tells girls to come over or something and says come sit next to him. No way that flies.
Yeah. In a work context, that's very different. I
Unbelievably different.
In a social context, I get it. You want drinking buddies,
same,
and
same.
There is something about like not drinking in a group of people that are drinking, but also drinking in a group of people that aren't drinking.
Correct.
Everyone knows like you're gonna lower your inhibition. You're probably not gonna do very smart things, but it's okay because everyone else is getting drunk and everyone else is drinking. And it's so ingrained, and I think it's very big right now. It's why I see in like that Wall Street Journal article, like drinking's made headlines. I think we drink a lot more post-pandemic. I also think there's just a lot of studies about how honestly terrible it is for you. One thing I recently learned, and this is from the Andrew Huberman podcast, I guess you have a lot of bacteria in your gut, and the bacteria, I'm going to get a lot of this wrong, but you back to your gut, back to your gut health and all that. And it's why you should eat fermented foods and kimchi and kombucha. But, you know, alcohol kills bacteria.
Kimchi.
But the bacteria in your gut apparently talks to your brain.
Bacteria in your gut or bacteria in your butt?
Gut.
Gut.
If I need to enunciate. Bacteria in your gut. So, which is actually like your throat. It's a whole big system. I didn't know that.
The digestive system.
No, it's called your gut. Your gut, like, I think.
Oh, your gut includes your throat.
I think so. See, I remember him saying that. But it's one thing. I want to listen to this podcast more than once. But I think the bacteria in your gut sends certain signals to your brain, which it basically impacts how your brain releases chemicals like dopamine, serotonin. So it's a part of the chemical regulation of your body is determined by the bacteria in your gut. Alcohol, as we know, kills bacteria. It kills bacteria on knives, used as a sanitation tool. When you drink, it kills bacteria in your gut, which then messes. That's why your anxiety, depression, all this stuff
goes up.
And it's long. It's not just the next day. It's
No.
It's weeks, months. Yeah.
I will say, hot take, relevant to our podcast, super slippery slope. I bet the reduction of alcohol actually leads to a reduction of social climbing networking, because I think drinking is kind of what levels the playing field between different ranks of people, different like even like ethnic groups or social groups or whatever, and that loosens you up to like bond together over getting drunk together. And there's literal part of like losing inhibition. I bet the growing culture of less than happy hours or less than active happy hours. Here's a TikTok clip. I bet leads to lower social mobilization together, which naturally leads to a lower ability to climb the ranks.
That's fascinating because it does. Alcohol definitely helps you bond. It's not the only way to bond, but primarily like it is the primary America corporate world way to bond, and a lot of high-end careers, consulting, tech for sure. I don't know about consulting, but banking, tech, I'd assume consultants as well too. They drink, you bond, you go out, you get close to your boss. And there is this mentality of like holding your liquor. And
exactly.
That's an effort.
It's a globally unifying effort. Like Koreans doing in Korea. I've never heard of a community or a country that hasn't had drinking and part of work culture or like networking. But I'm running through the scenario now. Let's say alcohol didn't exist. Then the only social interaction you have with your people are either lunches or dinners, where you're probably seated very intentionally around people that are your level or not really. The only way that you can bypass that is go to the second round, the third round, the fourth round at these bars, getting drunker and drunker, getting closer and closer with that person that's going to handle your promotion or whatever, and be like, yo, and then you remember the next day, you're like, this guy I hung out with. They might not remember literally what you did, but that's disappearing very rapidly.
I don't think it is disappearing. I think it might. I hope it does, but I don't know. Hope it does. I don't know the stats, but I hope people drink less.
Oh, sure.
That's what I'm saying. I think right now, as my current stance in time, I hope people in society drink less. I don't know the degree. I'm not saying none, less. I think it's rising. I actually don't know the stats. We should look. This is a totally uninformed podcast, but I don't know the stats. It rose post-pandemic. I don't know where it stands
Drinkers
right now.
rose or non-drinkers rose?
Drinking in America rose post-pandemic. In the pandemic, it rose.
But is that by actually though? Just to think it out, is it? Do you think it's by volume or by people? As in, do the drinkers drink more, but there's less people drinking, or there's more people drinking, but there's actually less alcohol being drunk? I would assume it's the first. I bet this
more people drinking.
No. The people that are already drinking
yes.
more.
Yes, I agree.
The rich are getting richer.
Yes, that was my. Did you see my LinkedIn post today?
I did not.
It was about. I thought it was really good, but it was about.
Did you send me the Spotify thing?
I sent you Economist.
Yeah,
article.
yeah.
It was. I spent Ep.3. I really liked it, but it's about. There's a wealth thing in it. That's not good.
I really want to talk about that too. But
okay. Let's say it's stagnant for now.
Sure.
I mean, eventually you can do like. How do you bond? Like you're again, the only person in my life.
Aww.
That is sober. That is mean. That is sober. I think. Completely. Like right now.
I am the only person in my life over the age of 21 that
has not had a drink in 9 months, 11 months.
100%.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Actually, I can name for a fact every single adult I know.
And I think I need to see, and this is us hyping each other up. I needed to see you do that, have a social life, and be able to bond with people. Like what went through my head as I've been drinking less and less and less. Cause I see it as like, oh, I have to get up these late nights with my friends, having wine and beer. Like, I love those nights. My Sundays and Mondays sucked, but I love those nights. But I also loved every single night I spent with you, dead sober. We didn't need any of that.
No, but okay. I'm gonna push back on myself. I think it is limiting though. Like I do actively miss just the mere feeling of it. Not getting drunk. Feeling hungover sucks. But I'm talking about. There's something about doing something together with others. Once that goes away, I think the bonding is harder. And two, even for me, maybe this is a good thing in your perspective, but when people ask me to go out, which they still do to a certain degree, I don't want to go out because I know I'm not going to be drinking.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't seem fun to me. And okay, funny enough, you say like, oh, like you seem to maintain it. I think one, I've had pretty solid relationships already of smart, caring people that like me for who I am, like not even trying to be soft, that don't really need alcohol as a medium to hang out, so that like I don't need to make an effort there, right? Like you still hang out with me if I don't drink. My girlfriend still hangs out with me if I don't drink. Most of my friends, and because a huge social time, I've been speaking Korean so much this week, I'm like lagging. A huge weight, a huge weight of my like social time is with my church folks who like at least outwardly don't drink. But I feel like even them, some of them drink, which is fine. I feel like I would have gotten closer to some of them if I drank.
I think that's because they drink. Like being part of sports teams, I have a very
dry season and stuff, right?
Dry seasons. I wrestled through college, through high school, and probably I think of high school. Just like you get so close. Like there are other ways to get to that level of bonding. Society's not structured for that. But if I went and played sports with my colleagues,
I feel like that's such an anomaly case, though.
It doesn't exist. But I'm saying,
right? It doesn't
alcohol
exist.
is just. I mean, it's so easy just to buy it and drink it. That's all. Not the requirement to bond through alcohol. What else is that easy? That's just like you grab a drink, you go to a bar, you pay some money, and you start drinking. Just that night.
It's the same concept as like us bonding over fraternity pledge, just like fraternity pledgeship, where you got to go through. In that case, it's a far extreme of like pain. But I think there's an inevitable human. Remember, what worldview doesn't matter. You can believe in like biology. You got to go through something together and do a bonding activity. One thing I've been realizing also recently is the types of things, I think you said it yourself just now, the types of things you could do with people is just so limited as you get older, especially. What can you do besides eat and talk? What's the go-to line when you say you want to spend time with each other? Let's grab some food.
It's not limited. It's just how society is currently set up.
What else could we do?
We could go play sports. We could go.
You and I.
We wouldn't be very good at it. I think we would still bond.
But that's us. I'm talking about, let's say there's a group of 6. What would you do?
You could play basketball.
Where?
That's saying it's not set
costly.
Up. That's my point. But it's not, if there are a lot more gyms, a lot more basketball courts, alcohol is very costly.
Do you think that's like a conspiracy theory? Do you think that's like a overseeing Big Brother force? Do you think it's big alcohol?
I think there's books on this.
I'm not saying alcohol is preventing the building of basketball gyms, but do you think they actively sought out? Because think about it, Mike, to your point, if there's a cheap, slightly higher opportunity cost activity that replaces drinking, okay? I know that, let's forget about the inhibition part that makes it fun. But like there's an activity that anyone can go to that's as cheap as drink, like a beer for, let's say, $6 a head. And you can enjoy yourself for an hour or two for $6 to $12. I can't think of a single thing in New York that's like that. No. Bowling is $30, movies are $30, escape rooms $30, screen golf $30.
Nothing else is as easy and as accessible as drinking.
Books, but you're not doing that together. I'm sure. Drinking, I think, is the only communal activity that you could do for $7 an hour. And you could just enjoy time.
I just want to make sure you're saying it's right now as society. Yes. And future state, it could.
Okay.
Like if you could rebuild, like.
You think like AI is gonna come and.
No. You could, like, if you had a lot more. If you make pickleball courts like as accessible as bar. If you make all the bars in New York with pickleball courts, it'd be dumb cheap. And you need demand. You need supply and demand.
I do think that's why in suburban areas, like where I'm from, Irvine, there's more friend groupy feeling like friend groups. Because they have access to basketball courts and soccer courts and houses to hang out at, because they all own places that, I mean, everyone's expensive, but around the area that aren't that cheap. Wow, I'm like having like such an obvious brain blast, but New York is so limited to going out. That's the only communal activity that you could really like default to. All our houses are small shoeboxes. Well, Mike's house is huge, but it's so big.
My studio apartment,
but
it's tiny.
But suburban communities, they always have things to do together that are not drinking. Yeah. In fact, there's not much bars and nightclubs. I think perhaps somewhat because of that reason, because there's other fallbacks to do.
Yeah, I mean SF, I feel like is a more sober city, at least per capita in New York.
Well, sober and alcohol.
Less alcohol. SF is less alcohol. They drink less, and they have. It is a beautiful city full of natures and trail running and parks. A lot more to do to bond over. They play games in the parks. Also, like more accessible parks, less densely populated.
Do you think as a decent drinker and as someone who I've seen like relatively enjoy alcohol, if alcohol as a concept didn't exist or drinking didn't exist, you wouldn't be as far in your career as you are now?
Oh.
Like, let's go back to my claim. Do you think that...
When did I ever drink an interview? You don't drink an interview.
No. But do you think the happy hours helped in like you doing well at Salesforce?
I think I'm able to stop now because I went out with everyone I've worked with at some point.
See? So it was a requirement almost.
But because I'm now bonded with a lot of people in my company. You can just spend a lot of time with them. I think alcohol, it's a very quick way to get close to someone. Also, I think we can go in the why. My argument of why is I think everything that I've talked about, like hard sports, drinking, going on a hard hike, it has to be hard things. I think that always lowers your inhibition, or like it shows someone's true character. If you're on a sports team with someone in a really hard environment and they have the option to quit pushing themselves to make themselves feel better, but it's going to screw over their team, what they choose to do kind of shows who they are as a person. So I think the same thing with alcohol, literally lowers your inhibition. You see it's different avenues of seeing who someone is. So I think I've bonded with a lot of people at work because I have gone out with them, I have drank with them. I don't need to anymore because I have a lot of close relationships, and everyone else, I'm still building close relationships, but I have like a solid foundation. I think I could have gone into it now without drinking because I think again, we're going back into our likability thing, which we talked about last time. I think that's a learned skill. I think I've gotten better at figuring out how to get close to people. I think I've built this on going on a bunch of first dates in New York City. I built this by being in sales for 2.5 years now. It's a skill you can work on. Like, how do you connect to someone? How do you get like close to them? How do you feel close to them? How do you get them to feel close to you? I think it's a learned skill that you can build. I think I'm getting much better at it. I think not drinking forces you to get much better at it. You realize you go to like, I would go to dinners with friends during like these little, because how I started this, I would do dry Januaries or like 2-week challenges. I'm not going to drink, but I still wanted a social life. So I'd still go out with the people that I would normally drink. Only like people I'd only ever drink with when I had dinner with. And now I'm sitting there with a club soda and they're having a beer. I'm like, there's little pauses in the conversation. And it felt so damn awkward. Where like, normally you just start drinking and you ignore it. It goes away so quickly.
Just pauses.
But I realized you push through that and it's like, oh, that's fine. Then you start talking, you get into it. You don't actually need the alcohol to loosen up. It's an acquired skill. And maybe that's why you're claimed that you're so sociable and likable and all this, because you've historically drank a lot less, at least, than I have.
Sure.
So you got better at it earlier. And now I feel like I've gotten better at it in the past year.
Do you think that besides the health defects that naturally come, there's other reasons to not drink? Like, do you want to, do you think there's like an aura, not to like even lift myself up, but just in general of like, oh, that guy like doesn't drink. Like, do you think that's like a attractive quality nowadays? Or it's at least rising to me? Because I think there's ebbs and flows. Like in high school, probably, if you're the guy that like, you know, illegally drinks, you're like, oh, you're the cool party guy. In college, if you can really handle alcohol, they're like, oh yeah, that guy's a tank. But like, I feel like after a certain age, it's not like cool to drink alcohol.
I think in college,
it's taboo at work, in my opinion.
To not drink?
No. To be like the drinker that goes overboard every single time.
Depends what work you're in. Sales is weird, for sure. In college, I would have found it very, very hard. I don't remember anyone in college that was like, oh, I'm so like, I respect them because they don't drink. Which is like, maybe hopefully it will change, but there's a lot of college culture things we could go into. Let's not go into it. Now I'm like, oh, you don't like drink, like cool. Like, I don't know if that's because I've started to understand it. And I think people do see you as like, oh, he doesn't drink, like as an adult. And I've learned you need these lines. And also I love having like the science of things. How I started this, I read a book by Matthew Walker called Why We Sleep. It goes into how incredibly important sleep is.
So we got that ring.
Then I bought this ring. It's an Aura ring.
Sponsor us.
Can you see it?
Aura ring.
Has little sensors in here. And I wanted to know, because I read this book about sleep, sometime in the pandemic, and I wanted to know if all this stuff was true. One of the first things I saw, and that's what I always tell people because they ask me about my ring, like what it does, and it tracks your sleep and it shows your heart rate and your brain waves and all this very, very cool stuff when you're sleeping. But every time I had either one sip of alcohol, like one drink of alcohol, 2 drinks, 3 drinks, all it would take was one drink, my heart rate spikes up. Normally it's low 40s when I sleep. It'll go to 49, low 50s. Sheesh. One drink. And so it's very quantitative. Like, this ring doesn't have an eyes. It doesn't know I had a drink that night. I didn't know I had a beer with my dad. Like, but I'll go to sleep and it's like, oh, is it good that your heart rate's beating faster every night? Not to mention, like, that was the easiest thing to see. And I'm like, oh, this book is true. Despite it being my scientist, PhD, I needed to see it to believe it. And then I started not drinking and trying it out and going through phases. I felt better. I looked better. I still do drink. I drank just last weekend at my sister's wedding. But I'm going through a...
Was Sarah married last weekend?
She got married last weekend.
Oh, sorry, I name drugged.
Yeah. Maybe, well, last name's fine. Whatever. First name's fine. Yeah, it was great.
Congrats, dude.
Yeah. And I'm still going to drink, but just not every night and then not like Tuesday night with my coworkers.
I do think that 26-year-old me has become like growingly health sensitive. Not even in mind, but like literally my body. And you like... The difference between eating something salty and not salty, or like watching TikTok and not watching TikTok at night, in terms of variability of sleep, like I don't even need that ring to figure that out. Like you feel it, it's immediate. Like I can literally A/B test today and tomorrow, and I can literally do like post 11 pasta plus 2 hours of TikTok is definitely worse sleep than only 30 minutes versus an hour and before 11 pasta. And I'm sure alcohol is like that on steroids. So you're saying like sleep is also another reason you would, but that's still health.
I think it's almost all sleep. There's the gut stuff. That's why I knew that. That's why I would talk about the gut stuff first, because that was the thing that was most interesting to me. I think my own unscientific take to someone who reads and listens to podcasts. I would say 90% of it is how it messes with your sleep.
A degree in podcastology.
Podcasting. I think it's all sleep. It messes with the sleep, messes with your brain waves. Like, you think about sleep, it actually happens in your brain It's your brain slowing down, shutting down your body, repairing brain sweat cells, repairing cells. Alcohol affects your brain. You feel very... Everyone knows this who's been on alcohol. It's not necessarily your body it's affecting. It's affecting your brain's ability to control your body, to regulate itself. So you can't regulate sleep like it's supposed to. And if you're someone who's like ate too much and not been to sleep, or again, watched too much TV, or had too much blue light right before you slept, and you feel that in your sleep, alcohol is like way more. And there's the little thing too of... This also was in the Why We Sleep book, but also the Huberman, he talked about this. All it takes is with one drink, and it completely changes your type of sleep you have, where in the night, you wake up a lot more than you think, but because of like the stage of sleep, you forget it. And so you're forgetting that you're waking up, and then when you drink alcohol, you actually wake up a lot more. Like, so you go wake, you don't go to that deep
REM
sleep
cycle or whatever. Yeah.
And like, there's so many interesting things about sleep, and like, we actually transfer memories during sleep from short-term to long-term memory. We're like a little computer. It's really, really interesting. So like, imagine all the day we're accumulating all this short-term memory, which is like maybe 24 hours, 48 hours. I don't know the time limit, but it's short. But it's not like an hour-long short, but the whole day is short-term memory. In sleep, that is when it becomes long-term. So you don't get sleep. You're drinking, even if it's a glass of wine at night. You're waking up more. You're not going to sleep. You're having long-term memory. You're not going to remember things. There's also stuff with Alzheimer's and dementia and all sorts of other stuff there. But I think sleep's huge. I think it's very important.
Sorry, that science talk put me to sleep. I don't really want to talk about this. Is very boring stuff to me.
Put me to sleep. That's good.
I'm in my short-term memory. Does that affect your dating, you think? You think if someone was a heavy drinker, would you not date them? I don't mean alcoholic, but like, let's say like they're just like, oh, I have to drink every week. I have to go out with my girls or whatever they say.
This would require a full tangent on dating, which we can do.
We're doing a full tangent on dating.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about REM cycles anymore.
How are you? What makes someone compatible?
But answer my question first, though.
This affects it. I don't know. I don't know. I think what makes you compatible? That's the question. What makes you compatible with someone?
What makes you compatible?
Do you need sleep patterns, party habits, diet?
But
hobbies.
There's so many variations of that. Like, for example, let's say you have characteristic A, and characteristic A is the type of characteristic that requires compatibility in someone that also has characteristic A. Or there's characteristics B that must have characteristic C and not characteristic B for compatibility. I don't think it's as easy as saying like, oh, this person is compatible with this person.
I mean, what makes you and your girlfriend compatible?
I think that we have very similar interests, very low, I don't want to say low expectations, but like also I don't want to like go on like a corny tangent, but the only way I could say it is like we like each other for like each other, and there's a conversation flow that the same way that you and I have that we always fall into, and conversation is the only other like casual activity in this current day and age besides drinking. Well, drinking also helps in some ways, but sober communication, sober conversation is something that I think we have in common. That I think that's like an inevitable piece of compatibility that everyone needs to have, where the conversation expectation is similar. But that's only if the compatibility matches. As in, let's say you have a talkative person and they just need someone to listen, and there's a listening person who doesn't want to talk. That's good compatibility. I'm someone that like I like to talk, but I need the other person to also talk. Like, I think if you don't talk, you're probably stupid. That's just like my like blanket. That's not factual, but that's my blanket statement. There's also people that want to not talk and just sit in the same room with each other. I've met plenty of couples like that. There's couples that like want to kind of talk, but not really. All kinds of conversation combinations, but it just needs to match.
Okay, so I'll answer your question, then I'll go on my own tangent. Right now in my life, I don't think I could be with someone that drinks heavily.
Right now in your life, you can't be with someone that drinks heavily.
I've gone through, it's so interesting, like, I'm currently single. I've gone on a lot of dating.
Currently single.
In New York. I've gone through this whole thing. I wrote a whole book on it called, very popular in the podcast world, if she wants to ever come on a podcast. Logan Uri, I think is her name, called How Not to Die Alone.
Oh, yeah.
That's the name of the book. I probably told you about this. I would have called it The Psychology of Dating, to be honest. How Not to Die Alone is like a little... I don't love having that name on my bookshelf, but it's on there. Great book, though. I would highly recommend it. I just think she could have had a better title. It's really, she's a behavioral psychologist she was at Google for a while. Now she's at head data scientist at Bumble, and then wrote this book about dating.
Of course she is.
And it goes to like all these different things and I'm really going to focus on online dating for now, but the world of online dating, all these psychological biases, which I had known from other reading other books about psychology, but she applies them all to dating. Like one of them is like the paradox of choice. When you have so many choices, it makes it a lot harder to choose someone. New York City on Hinge or Bumble, it is the paradox of choice. Tons of choices. You have mismatching qualities. Like, oh, you can always do better. There's always someone better. I can get someone prettier, someone smarter, better conversation. Having too much choice, very well known. It's why you get like a good, better, best in sales. And when we do offers, we give a good, better, and best. We don't give a good, better. Like, no. It's why you look at wines. It's like medium price, small price, like the shelves. Like there's only like 3 main shelves. You look
Which is all fabricated, by the way.
The optionality.
No, the wine specifically. I learned this in college as a case study where they put different labels on 3 different things and stage them at different stages of that like shelf at Kroger or whatever. But those wine companies is basically the same exact thing. They just put different stickers and they actually have data behind which one you're going to probably buy. So the middle one is actually not that much better than the lower one or whatever. People typically go for the middle one because they think that it's better quality than the lower one, but not as expensive as the top one. But it's actually not life-changing.
That's fascinating. If there were 10 choices, all kind of similar prices, you'd be like, all right. And then you always like, did I make the right choice? Did I get the right wine? I got the red, I got the white.
Random thing. I have to share this because I saw this today. A guy who worked at Colgate, like the toothpaste company, like exposed and said that none of the different toothpaste options matter at all. Like the more white glossening or like the one that tastes better or whatever, all the same. There's zero difference, just different taste and flavor.
Oh, you know, while we're on the toothpaste, book called Power of Habit. I think it's Power of Habit.
It is Power of
Habit.
Habit.
Do you know this? Like what they added to toothpaste. So people weren't brushing their teeth at one point, and to have you need like a.
They put nicotine in it.
No, you need like a cue and a reward. There's all this stuff for habit formation. I don't know all the stages, but you need some sort of sensation.
Sure.
You know how toothpaste is kind of like tingly.
Yeah.
They added that
into floss.
Into toothpaste.
Into toothpaste.
So it was just like whatever the fluoride
like
or whatever.
Seltzer.
It was just like a paste before. Yes, exactly.
No.
They had to have a feeling. That's that clean feeling you
crazy.
get. It's not like, you know, you get a clean feeling. They manufacture that so people would brush their teeth.
In the same article, last tangent, I learned that all of the makeup makers make lipstick heavier so girls think it's more expensive. Subconscious.
Like physically.
There's weight inside of it.
I've always felt like
there's no reason for it to be heavy. If you take that, whatever they put in there out, it's super light. They made
it like chapstick. It's like $2 chapstick. Because chapstick is so light. What's
so light. There's no difference. They make it heavy so that it's more luxurious and it feels like it has more weight, literally.
That is so interesting.
Back to option. This is a choice. I agree. Too much choice. Too much optionality.
Too much optionality.
Fake optionality.
Dating.
Just like realistically, whoever you're watching, you don't have choice. You're going to be matched with someone of your level or lower.
What?
There's no optionality. The dating app makes you feel like there's better. There theoretically is better, but that's not accessible to you.
You're just saying they're all the same?
Yeah. No. I'm saying, like, if you're a girl and there's Timothée Chalamet does exist, but you're not going to date Timothée Chalamet.
But there are better matches and worse. Like, you have a range of matches.
Of course. But even the matches aren't necessarily
are you saying there's always
possible.
better?
There's always better.
Yeah.
There's always better.
But in Hinge, there is literally like, there may be someone better in that queue.
Better as in what?
That's the...
But better in that queue that you're missing out on.
Yeah.
I understand.
So you can go to a first date.
But if we believe in a single universe, like not multiverse, then like you can't say there is someone better in that queue. Yes, there is, but if you don't reach them, they don't exist.
My queue.
Mike's Hinge. This is a huge segment on Brian and Mike's podcast.
I have 50 plus likes. These are girls.
Sick, dude.
These are girls that have like, I've been off it for a while. These are girls that have liked me. I've gone on dates with 9 girls in New York City.
Okay.
Do you think there's not, in the 50 plus versus the 9 I've gone on dates with? That's the paradox of choice right there. It's because it's accumulated. I changed
of course, but I'm saying even that falls in my category of, yes, there could be a better match for you, but it doesn't mean that person wants you.
They like my profile.
How much thought? Okay,
they like my profile.
You're an anomaly, but how much thought do you put in when you like these profiles? The 2 weeks that I was on Hinge, I would go. But
I could go on a date with. I could go on a date every night of the week in New York. I don't.
I'm sure you can.
And one might be better than my.
I'm sure you can.
I can always.
But I'm saying if we believe that there's some level of like no coincidence, like God aside, let's say that we live in a single. There's no multiverse. There are results to be had that like that exists. Like the future result exists. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
If I hit this, I know this is gonna fall. The person you're marrying like exists.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. If we agree on that,
Yeah.
I'm saying that based on that,
We did this on the cutoff. When we cut off last time.
yeah. Based on that, you don't have a choice.
Let's slow down for the viewers.
Based on that, you have less optionality than you actually think. You're making it seem like there's an indefinite
There's
number
only
of girls.
1 to 2 to 3 girls I ever marry.
Exactly.
I hope one.
Exactly.
I hope just one.
Exactly. Statistically, there's only 1.5 or whatever. I'm saying you won't go on all these days because you are not right now.
We're going to philosophy of like that really is the realm of like because you know there's one person you'll marry. Is it predetermined? Like that's
Yeah. Well, sure.
okay.
But my only point being is that optionality is toxic, and 2, I don't think you could say that there's actually those options. And I would argue, yes, in your case, there's 50 queued up.
It's called a cognitive bias for a reason.
There's 50 queued up that of course there's someone better in that stack. I think for many hopeless romantics or hopeless mics or like hopeless thirsty people, they're on Tinder for hours a day because they're like, there must be a better. It's the same thing as like when you're finding the perfect YouTube or Netflix video while trying to eat. There's like the subconscious of like, there must be something better, so I keep scrolling. It's the exact same approach, I think.
It's one of the big challenges of the 21st century is the paradox of choice everywhere.
Too much optionality.
Netflix, dating,
content,
even careers.
I just literally the
right
same
industry,
thing.
right this. Let's go into the paradox of choice and careers in 1 second. It's a great tangent. I want to wrap up the solution to dating. So I feel like I have to put a bow on this.
Solution to dating.
Like what she talks about. The solution. I just went into one example.
Yes.
Many things I could go into. The ones I took away. Great relationships are not found, they're made. I stand by that. I asked you if there's soulmates at the end of last episode. I don't believe in soulmates. I'm not religious. I do think there's many, many girls that I could be in a great marriage with. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I try to always look at like different attributes of my, that's actually very distracting when you do that. My different attributes of my friends that I like. I have different friends, but also a lot of similarities in the friends I have. So I'm like, okay, it should be someone like that. Good conversation. I've also said for a long time I'm looking for like a feeling that I've had a couple times in my life, and that was when once I was applying to college. Like, I applied to a bunch of colleges. Like I was looking at a bunch of colleges. Some were like, oh, I'm okay with this. Like I'd be trading off this. Then W&L when I was like looked at it, I'm like, that's it. I really, really want this. Then I got like Workday and Salesforce. I'm like both times, like tons of interviews, tons of doing this. But as soon as I found it and applied and got the interview and got farther and farther along in the process, I'm like, ooh, this is it. I really wanted it. I feel like I should have it. I feel like I should get it. I worked hard. I got it. That's the feeling I'm looking for.
So it's made. It's crafted over time. That's what you're trying to say.
It's crafted, but it's also, I've been looking for that feeling.
But the feeling exists.
That I know exists in my life with other stuff.
You don't think the feeling is an afterthought though?
I think
how are you certain that you felt
it.
that actually though?
You built it.
Okay.
I remember. I mean, I journal, so I know what I felt at various stages. Like I'm sure at some point with Claire, you're like, well.
But you think what part of that do you think is like confirmation bias?
I said her name.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Claire, shout out Claire. But I'm saying like what?
Okay, she's on your channel.
Yeah, she's already there. What percent of that is confirmation bias? Like you're for example, Salesforce is great, but how much of it is like you're already making it, so you're telling yourself this is the one for me because you've made it. Human beings very resort to things that they've already like gotten.
No. In the like I journaled this in the process. I'm like, I literally like Workday. I wasn't journaling at W&L, but both Workday and Salesforce, I was like, fuck, I really want this.
But I'm trying to think of a process where whether it be job or whether it be girls or whatever, where as I got deeper and deeper into it, it was confirmed that I got this. Like for example, the girl liked me back, or the job is.
That's part of it.
Giving me an offer.
Is part of that feeling. I feel like I could get. I was very realistic of like W&L stats. I fit the stats. Workday, Salesforce. I'm like, they're not the Googles of the world. Like I thought I could get into those companies too. And I knew I was qualified for the role.
Right. So you are settling. I'm trying to say.
Yeah, sure. Yes. Okay. I knew it was right for me. Yes.
Okay. So I would say settling
Absolutely.
is a
W&L's not Harvard.
Settling is a little different from saying like, oh, this is like the one.
But like, if I was to apply to Harvard, let's use schools. Everyone knows schools. If I was to apply to Harvard in high school, I bet I'd been like, fuck, like, not gonna happen. I'm not gonna try it. Go up to hot girl in a bar. It's not gonna happen, but I'll try it. But
Mike,
like,
you can get a hot girl in the bar.
But like W&L is like, ooh, it fits me. I could be very happy there. I can see myself there. It felt different than applying to Harvard. I would bet. I didn't apply to Harvard. I went to Stern at NYU.
Fun fact, I applied to Harvard.
Okay.
But anyways.
The W&L, like, I don't know if you've had the same thing. Like It felt different.
But you don't,
because I was realistic. It was realistic.
You think that's a good way to live life? I have
it's the best way to live life.
I have my own answer to put it in a bad way, to settle. You think it's a good way to live life?
To know what you can currently get in your current moment. Or if you can work harder. There's a point where like, okay.
To be satisfied.
By senior year of high school,
okay,
I could not have studied more for Harvard. Maybe if I'd aimed, I never tried to go to Harvard. Freshman, I'm just using that as a good example.
Sure.
Freshman year, if my goal was Harvard and I kept trying to get straight, and you kind of know, you can look at the stats.
Of course.
If I kept trying to get straight A's, never got it, senior year and apply, I'm deluded. And like that, I could have had that feeling. I'm deluded. If I had got straight A's and then applied and got everything I want, like everything that should have got me to Harvard, then I would have had that feeling. Like, fuck, I've earned it. I should get it.
I would almost argue college is the only exceptionary case in that, though. And maybe I'm overly optimistic. Maybe I'm no. I'm saying, oh, sure. Maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I'm genuinely a believer. Genuinely believer that you could get besides like getting the MBA. I'm talking about. Let's simplify it. Let's simplify to woman, jobs. Actually, let's just simplify to those two things. I think if you really put your mind to it, you could do either of those things to any degree. Period. Because, I'm sorry to say, just being really honest, one solves the other. If like that's the only goal you have in life, maybe not that specific person, right? Like maybe there's a person in your mind where you're like, this is the perfect girl. Maybe that person, for whatever reason, just doesn't like you. And there's literally nothing you can do. Sure. But I'm talking about the hot girl in the bar scenario and the greatest job in the world scenario. Let's say starting today, your only goal is something high, like Citadel quant trader who's making like $6 million a year at age 25. That's your only goal in life. I bet you could do it. And if your goal was to get the hottest girl at the New York bar right now in West Village, I am confident you can do it. Not like you, but a theoretical person. College, I do agree that there's a level of like academic disparity or whatever. But I think post-college, the two things that matter the most, which is like on a secular worldly level, getting married to a girl and getting a good job, I don't think there's that much limitation there. Maybe it's maybe different people take different times to get there. You were telling me all these billionaires, there's like guys that some I may know personally that have like objectively attractive girlfriends. Let's just use that as a standard for example. There is no way when they were like 16 looking at themselves, they were like, I'm going to date a hot girl. I'm sorry to say, they're only dating that hot girl right now because they are unbelievably successful. And that came with the grind.
I think it depends on.
Are you trying to not get canceled?
No, I'm not actually. I don't like using hot girl when he's like attractive. I feel like hot has a weird different connotation. But
sorry, attractive.
It depends. There's so many ifs, buts. It depends here. Like,
but simplify, generalize.
If you're 22, you graduate college. Let's say you didn't graduate college. You're 22. I guess you could go back to college. Like, it goes back to like our POV. Did you ever do POV 101?
I did.
We have a poverty 101 course. And there's a great quote in there. And like this goes into, we can go into our income inequality, which is kind of what I talked about. And all this stuff of people tell people, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Hard work gets you there. American dream, all this. But what if you don't have bootstraps? You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't have bootstraps.
Mike the progressive.
There's if you don't have the ability, if you have.
But I'm not trying to get political. I'm talking about the mindset. You just said the happier mindset, which I actually agree to a certain degree, is to identify yourself, understand your situation. And I'll start using the word settle. I'll use the word like know your place.